How's it going, everyone? I'm back with another Destiny 2 video. Today I'm going to be doing my best to help you find some weapons to use in endgame activity when beyond light drops. I made a video yesterday where I detailed some primary weapons that you may want to consider farming to have a diverse set of weapons for next season. In this video I will be talking about energy and heavy weapons. I know some people like the idea of sunsetting and some people don't, and I can honestly understand both sides. I'm personally quite neutral on the subject, and since it's inevitably happening, I want to help all players prepare for it. I'm hoping that this video helps out at least a few of the viewers. It's why I make videos. I don't have a large audience, but I enjoy making content on one of my favorite games. If you enjoyed this content, then hit that like button and subscribe to my channel to check out my future videos. Now, with sunsetting, many of the weapons we enjoy won't be viable in endgame activity, and given that we don't know what weapons will be introduced, I feel like it's better to farm some now so you can guarantee you have a couple weapons you enjoy for PvP or PvE endgame in Season 12. Now, I will mention Last Wish weaponry, which can be obtained via the soloable chest in the raid, or you can do the raid itself. And I will also mention Garden of Salvation weaponry, but unfortunately you will have to do the raid to obtain these weapons. So in this video, for each weapon type, I'm going to give a couple of weapons I highly recommend, followed by some honorable mentions. With that said, I want to start with secondary weapons, and more specifically, fusion rifles. Now, as a huge fan of fusion rifles, I find myself somewhat disappointed with the current legendary selection. In fact, none really excel at PvP, but there are a few that will be pretty good in PvE activities. My first recommendation is the main ingredient. Now, if you enjoyed the loaded question, this will be similar to that except without the exploding enemies. This can be acquired from world loot drops. My next recommendation is the Hollow Words, and this can be farmed via the Prismatic Recaster with a small chance from the base umbral, a better chance from the pyramid focused umbral, and a 50% chance from the rifle focused umbral. Honorable mentions for fusion rifles include Exile's Curse if you want to brave Trials of Osiris, and the Techion Force from the Last Wish raid. The next weapon type I want to discuss is the Breach Loaded Grenade Launcher. The Mountaintop is another recluse situation in that people are looking to replace a weapon that is irreplaceable unless there is a weapon introduced that is so similar it will be dubbed Mountaintop 2.0. However, there are a couple of good breach loaded grenade launchers, and my first recommendation is probably one many have already heard about, and that is Truth Teller, and this can be obtained via world loot drops. My second recommendation is from Season of Dawn, and that is a Martyr's Retribution, and this can still be farmed via the Prismatic Recaster if you focus your umbral into a Legacy Seasons umbral or a Dawn focused umbral. And as for honorable mentions, I guess you can farm Orwig's Maul from Iron Banner this coming week, and I guess farm multiple different roles on your Truth Teller. Try for a PvP and PvE god role. I don't know. I guess this has been the most disappointing category so far. Anyway, on to shotguns. Unlike the breach loaded GLs, we have several more options here. So I recommend the Aikilos shotgun, which drops from the Prophecy dungeon. And I think this is an all-around good shotgun that can be usable in both PvE and PvP, although shotguns aren't really endgame weapons in PvE activities at this time. I also recommend the First In, Last Out, and this is a slug shotgun that you can get a good PvE roll with Vorpal weapon on it. And there are a couple good perk options for PvP as well. This can be farmed via the Prismatic Recaster, and from this point forward I will assume you are focusing your umbrals. So no more talk about the base umbral. So this has a decent chance from the Exodus focused umbral, and a 50% chance from the CQC focused umbral. Now, shotgun honorable mentions include the Astral Horizon, which can be farmed via Trials of Osiris if you choose. I also quite like the 7th Seraph shotgun, which comes from the Legacy Seasons umbral or the Worthy focused umbral. Also, a quick shout out to Hawthorne's Field Forge shotgun, which is a world loot drop. Next, I want to talk about sniper rifles. Again, there are some pretty good options here. I would recommend getting your hands on the Aikilos sniper rifle, which actually comes with decent perk choices, and it can also roll with Seraph rounds and spawn Warmind cells if you enjoy those builds. This has a decent chance to drop from the Exodus focused umbral, and a 50% chance to come from the Assassin focused umbral. Next, I would recommend the Distant Tumulus, which can roll with perks that are decent for PvE and PvP, and this comes as a world loot drop. Now, before I get into the honorable mentions, if you haven't noticed, Trials weapons haven't made it out of honorable mentions, because if people don't already have these by now, I kind of feel bad for trying to send them into a mode that is unfavorable for those people, due to the fact that the population is low, and that population is either players who are quite good or cheaters. Anyway, that's why Iosol is here in the honorable mentions and can obviously be acquired in Trials of Osiris. I also recommend the Supremacy from the Last Wish raid, and the Omniscient Eye from the Garden of Salvation raid. So moving on to heavy weapons now. I'm not sure what's going on, but it seems like we're going to have a pretty limited choice for heavy weapons heading into Beyond Light. So for heavy grenade launchers, I recommend Outrageous Fortune, which comes as a world loot drop, and at one point sat alongside the Swarm of the Raven. And speaking of Swarm of the Raven, I also recommend that one. It's basically a void version of the Outrageous Fortune, and you can acquire this one with the Return of Iron Banner this coming week. There's not a whole lot to say about those two, as you want spike grenades, really, and there are plenty of recommendations for accompanying perks out there. Honorable mentions include Behringer's Memory, which is a world loot drop, and Interference 6, which is also a world loot drop. As for linear fusion rifles, there isn't any farmable option here. If you have a line in the sand from Season of Dawn, then you can use that, but if you don't, then you're kind of out of luck. Next is machine guns, and this is terribly depressing. Some of my favorite heavies have been machine guns since they were introduced into Destiny 2. And now, the selection is basically gone. In this category, I have only one recommendation, and it's not even farmable anymore. And that is the 7th Seraph Saw from Season of the Worthy. If you have this weapon, hang on to it at all costs, and hopefully you were able to get a decent roll on yours. I desperately hope that Bungie introduces several machine guns coming next season. Anyway, on to rocket launchers, which also have restricted choices. Here I recommend the Huzgao, which can drop with some decent PvE perks and can be acquired via the Prophecy Dungeon. Next, I recommend the Moss Epoch 3, which comes from the World Loot Pool. And honestly, there isn't much to say about rocket launchers given that they haven't been good in quite a while and they aren't used in many activities currently. As for honorable mentions, there is Tomorrow's Answer from Trials of Osiris and Apex Predator from the Last Wish raid. The final category for heavy weapons are swords, and these are kind of the king of the heavy slot right now. As for my recommendations, they will be pretty obvious. We have the Falling Guillotine, aka the Dark Drinker 2.0, and this sword is one of the best weapons Bungie has introduced in recent memory. This can be farmed via the Prismatic Recaster with a slight chance from the Pyramid Focus Umbral, and a 50% chance from the Arrival Focus Umbral. Following that, we have the Temptations Hook, aka Boltcaster 2.0, and this is a nice projectile legendary sword, and also comes via the Prismatic Recaster. It has a slight chance to drop from the Pyramid Focused Umbral, and a 50% chance to drop from the Edge Focused Umbral. Alright, so those are my recommendations for special and heavy weapons to be on the lookout for while preparing for sunsetting. I want to make sure you all have a good arsenal to head into the endgame when Beyond Light drops, and with the length of this season extended, I hope that you have something to do in the meantime. Let me know in the comments what weapons you are trying to get before the season ends. Maybe even include your desired role to help out others who are looking for a good role on these weapons. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.